I would like to ask you a question. Do you own the CS63? And if your answer to that is yes, why would you own this vehicle? Today I want to talk about the most pointless tanks in World of Tanks Blitz and how to maybe fix them at tier 10 especially. I'm going to start off with the CS63, and you will also be seeing CS63 for the remainder of this video because I couldn't be bothered to play the VZ, but that's a spoiler. Now this vehicle, it looks pretty decent on the face of it. I mean, 3.3k DPM, 340 alpha damage, 0.31 accuracy, 8 degrees of gun depression, 22 effective power to weight ratio, 47 traverse. It does look overall pretty solid, doesn't it? But here's the problem. A vehicle never exists in isolation. And another thing that doesn't exist is this vehicle's armor. Because, just look at that. Where's the armor? Because vehicles never exist in isolation. If something is worse than everything else, it's the worst by definition, even if you enjoy it. And for example, if you believe that everything is above average, everything is average, because that's how averages work. Now, this vehicle is very far from average. It's quite a bit below that. And the way I would like to show you that, first of all, is by comparing it to the E50M, one of the best tanks at tier 10. Now, the E50M has a very similar gun right there with the same DPM. It's in fact exactly the same DPM, but if you look further down the stack, even the aim time is just copy-pasted, even though the E50M is more accurate. And the E50M is also faster for some reason, even though it weighs quite a lot more. And then if we look even further at the E50M's armor that you're probably all aware of, then the E50M has actually bonkers insane armor for a medium tank. So this vehicle is not just worse in terms of its gun, it's also worse in terms of its mobility, and it is also worse in terms of its armor. Exactly is the point of a vehicle like this. I mean, we had a lot more of vehicles like this in the game, not just at tier 10, also at tier 8 with, for example, the HWK30, which is just a RU2FR1 that is worse, and it has once again been sold for a lot of gold in the auction. Essentially, you're just copy-pasting a vehicle, making it worse, and now selling it for 12,000 gold. And that's sort of what happened to the CS63 as well. Like, essentially, you paste the E50M's gun stats, make all the accuracy worse, and then you puke it into the game. However, this vehicle could be so much better and so much more interesting because the World of Tanks PC version, I'm not saying that World of Tanks PC is a great game, it definitely isn't, but the World of Tanks PC version of the CS63 has a very interesting feature to it, and that is turbo mode. Basically, you can switch the driving mode of the vehicle to have more horsepower and more speed, but you will lose a lot of aim time for it, basically making you very inaccurate while you're in that advanced driving speed. Now, you could very easily do that in World of Tanks Blitz as well, with, for example, this speed boost already exists. I mean, we already have the advanced speed boost in the game, so why the vehicle doesn't even have that, I quite don't understand. Or we could simply use something that is already present in the game, especially in fun modes, and that is the fourth action button below the consumables. For example, that's used for the thrusters in gravity mode. You could use that same button to activate or deactivate a turbo mode for a CS63. Now, in World of Tanks PC, you have to wait 2 seconds to get in and out of the turbo mode. I don't think that's a good idea, and really Blitz is a lot faster game than World of Tanks PC, so that's not really that great of an idea, and you should be able to like switch instantly between the two modes. And the same is true for the VZ55 as well, because in World of Tanks PC, it is a 2-shot autoloader that is interesting. Because now, while it is an entirely pointless and generic copy of an IS-7 style vehicle that has no place or point to serve in the game, if it were to have a 2-shot autoloader, it would be the only Soviet style tier 10 to be of that format. It would also sort of add to the reason of the Object 752 being there. If that line would be 2-shot autoloaders, you would also have the Object 752 as a 2-shot autoloader already as its sort of designated premium tank at tier 9. And in general, you would have a vehicle that actually makes sense because you have a Soviet-style vehicle that has a similar gun to the 2-shot of the M6 Yaw, but obviously the gun, the armor, the mobility is then still going to be very different. We have like, do you want the American version of the 2-shot autoloader, or do you want the Soviet version of the 2-shot autoloader? That would make the vehicle unique and special. But instead, Wargaming has also decided to make it entirely pointless, like the CS63 as well. So what is the exact point of all of these changes? We have so many variables in the game. You have different equipment. The Type 71, for example, has different equipment. You have different consumables, like I've already mentioned, the enhanced speed boost. and also the gimmicked consumables that are around everywhere. So basically, what is the point of having this many options in a game, but then not making use of them and producing a vehicle like this? That really doesn't make a lot of sense to me, does it? I mean, what entirely is the point when you already have all of these measures and then you produce that? And in a time where balance changes essentially feel completely random and pointless, where buffing the penetration of a vehicle by 2 millimeters and changing its reverse speed by 1 kilometer an hour is seen as a change to a vehicle, I don't really see this going in a good direction in terms of the tank balance. And the terrible example that we're steering towards is the example I've already made before. Whereas the CS63, for example, in WoT Tanks PC with its turbo mode is a great deal, the game is terribly unbalanced in its overall gameplay. And that is where WoT Tanks Blitz is also heading. A state where essentially it doesn't matter what a vehicle's role is or what a vehicle's performance is supposed to be. A vehicle is just a random concoction of values that have no point and no reason to exist in the way that they do. A CS63 that is inferior in every way to an E50M is not balance, but it is simply someone not caring what happens to the vehicle. Or, for example, a VZ55 simply being released with an i7 copy gun is just lazy work, where you just take something and then like, we need to make it unique. No, instead of actually giving it a gun that's useful, we're gonna give it less aim time, but only when it's driving slow. What exactly is the point of changes like that? And some vehicles have special consumables. Some vehicles have special equipment. It also does feel pretty random. Like, for example, an ML9051 has the enhanced great speed boost. This vehicle doesn't even have that. So it does just simply feel like all of the equipment choices on all the consumables are just simply randomly distributed, and someone's just throwing a dice and be like, you know what, we're going to implement the Waffenträger E100, but instead of giving it a autoloader gun or even anything remotely useful, we're going to give it a 310 alpha damage medium tank gun that does 260 alpha damage and has 7,413 DPM, and as a gimmick that makes the vehicle unable to be tracked, and in fact, when its tracks get damaged, make the vehicle faster. Because that's reasonable. That's kind of how the changes feel. What do you think about it? Is it pointless? Am I just wasting my time? I mean, I am, but say it.